8. War Machine. Former MMA fighter and adult film actor Jonathan Paul Copenhaver, better known as War Machine, has a long history of being aggressive and defiant toward authority. Shortly after being released by the UFC in 2007, he caught 2 assault charges and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. 3 years later, he tried to get back into the UFC, but the organization turned him away. That same year, Copenhaver was convicted of a felony assault charge and spent a little over 2 years behind bars for his crimes. He began dating adult actress Christy Mack in 2013, and for a while, it seemed like his life was on a better path. Dating Mack seemed to help his public image, and he managed to avoid any major drama for about a year. But the relationship was less than idyllic behind closed doors. Copenhaver was allegedly jealous, possessive, and controlling. And in May 2014, Mack broke up with him. 3 months later, the disgraced fighter entered Mack's Las Vegas apartment and found her in bed with her new boyfriend, Corey Thomas. Overcome by an uncontrollable rage, Copenhaver brutally attacked Thomas for 10 straight minutes, and finally let him go after he promised not to go to the authorities. Copenhaver then spent the next 2 hours assaulting Mack. She escaped to a neighbor's house via her balcony and was rushed to the hospital with a broken nose, 18 broken facial bones, 12 missing teeth, a fractured rib, and a ruptured liver. Police caught up with Copenhaver a week later after tracing his location through his tweets. He was convicted of 29 felonies, including kidnapping, assault battery, domestic battery, coercion, and more. The court sentenced him to life with the possibility of parole after 36 years. About a year and a half later, Copenhaver said that he thinks about his actions daily and regrets what he did. He's reportedly engaged to his pen pal and has become a born-again Christian. 7. Eric Naposki. After a short-lived career playing for the New England Patriots and Indianapolis Colts in 1988 and 1989, Eric Naposki joined the minor league Barcelona Dragons team. He quit after the 1992 season due to injuries and moved to Irvine, California, where he took a job as a security guard and started a children's exercise program. It was through the kids' organization that he met a woman named Nanette Johnston, and they became friends. At the time, Johnston was living with her multimillionaire boyfriend, 52-year-old Bill McLaughlin, whom she met through a personal ad she placed in the newspaper seeking wealthy men. She was still in a relationship with McLaughlin in 1993 when things between her and Naposki became romantic, or at least physical. Johnston dated Naposki behind McLaughlin's back for about a year. They no longer had to keep the affair a secret after December 15, 1994, when McLaughlin was shot in the chest 6 times while reading the newspaper at his kitchen table. Police quickly discovered the relationship and were eager to question both parties. After verifying Johnston's alibi, they shifted their attention to Naposki, who denied any involvement in McLaughlin's murder. He also claimed that he was unaware of Johnston's romantic relationship with McLaughlin and that he thought they had a father-daughter type of bond. Investigators speculated that Naposki and Johnston conspired to murder McLaughlin so that Johnston could collect on his life insurance and savings. But without enough evidence to make any arrests, they had no choice but to let the couple walk free while they continued to investigate. Naposki and Johnston soon went their separate ways. Over the next 15 years, Johnston married twice and remained in California, while Naposki returned to playing football overseas, and then moved to Connecticut with his fiancée. The couple married, had kids, bought a house, and settled into a comfortable middle-class existence. In 2007, investigators reopened McLaughlin's murder case and thoroughly reviewed the evidence. They found dozens of connections and other useful pieces of information they were previously unaware of, and finally had enough to arrest Naposki and Johnston for murder. Both defendants were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. They continue to maintain their innocence from behind bars while pointing the finger at each other for the crime. 6. Michael Jace. Michael Jace's professional acting career began during the 1990s with occasional appearances in popular shows and movies like Law & Order, Star Trek, Boogie Nights, Forrest Gump, and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes remake, just to name a few. His career continued on an upward trajectory, and he eventually landed a leading role as Officer Julian Lowe on the FX drama The Shield. But the New Jersey native found himself in the exact opposite shoes of a police officer in 2014, when law enforcement received a call about a domestic violence incident at his home in the Los Angeles suburb of Hyde Park. After the first call, which was placed by someone else, Jace dialed 911 and said to the dispatcher, "I just shot my wife." Officers arrived at the scene to find 40-year-old April Jace dead from gunshot wounds. Under questioning, Michael Jace admitted to shooting his wife during an argument that broke out after April said she wanted a divorce. Their 2 kids were in the room when the crime occurred. Jace insisted that he never meant to kill April, but that he was trying to inflict pain when he shot her, and that he had aimed for her leg. But she was shot 3 times, leaving detectives highly skeptical about Jace's claims that her death was an unfortunate accident. The court found him guilty of second-degree murder in 2016 and imposed a sentence of 40 years to life behind bars. He'll become eligible for parole in 2034 under California's elderly parole program at the age of 72 years old. At his sentencing, Jace apologized to April's family, but her mother had no interest in his expressions of remorse and walked out of the courtroom during his statement. 5. Ryan Grantham. Canadian actor Ryan Grantham was just a kid when he landed his first major role in Diary of a Wimpy Kid. In more recent years, he scored small roles in Supernatural and Riverdale. His life took a wildly unexpected turn in March 2020, when he approached his mom from behind while she played the piano at her home in British Columbia and shot her in the back of the head with a .22 rifle. Shortly after the murder, Grantham made a GoPro video admitting to the crime and showing her dead body. The situation got even weirder the next morning, when Grantham covered his mother's body with a sheet, surrounded it with candles, and hung a rosary from the piano. He loaded his car with guns, ammunition, and Molotov cocktails and began driving east towards Ottawa, where he planned to assassinate Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. At some point along the drive, Grantham decided that he would commit a mass shooting instead. He considered carrying out the crime at his college, Simon Fraser University, or on the Lionsgate Bridge in Vancouver. Thankfully, the disturbed young actor ultimately decided to turn himself in to the police, and no more lives were lost. He reportedly told authorities that he killed his mom to spare her from the fallout of the violent crimes he planned to commit afterward. Grantham was convicted of second-degree murder, which comes with an automatic life sentence in Canada. He'll be eligible for parole after serving 14 years. 4. Kalyn Walker. In 2018, Kalyn Walker earned a reputation as a talented up-and-coming actor for his role as gang member Juju in the Superfly reboot. The gig came on the heels of his role in the 2017 movie Kings, which he starred in alongside Halle Berry and Daniel Craig. Unfortunately, Walker's path to success took a hard left turn, just as it seemed like it was starting to take off. The same year that Superfly was released, authorities connected him to a series of assaults against young women that began in 2013 and arrested him on a slew of charges. Prosecutors claimed that Walker targeted his victims on social media. He deliberately sought out aspiring models and other attractive women and promised them professional opportunities and to introduce them to celebrities. Once he got them alone, he brutally assaulted them, ignoring their commands to stop what he was doing. During the trial, Walker's lawyer Andrew Flyer argued that the victims were lying as part of a revenge campaign against his client. He claimed the women were angry because they had fallen for Walker's BS. In other words, Flyer readily admitted that his client was a manipulator, but denied that Walker took his behavior to a criminal level. Walker was convicted of multiple different assault charges in late 2022 and received a sentence of 50 years to life. In a statement to USA Today, Flyer expressed disappointment at the sentence and made it clear that his client maintains his innocence. He claimed that Walker didn't get a fair trial, that his client was portrayed as a monster, and that many important issues were excluded by the court. Flyer said that he planned to appeal the case. 3. Keith Wright. Starting in 2003, Keith Wright briefly played for various NFL teams and practice squads. His short-lived pro football career ended in 2006. It's unclear what he spent the next 5 years doing, but he reappeared in the news in 2011 when he was accused of committing 3 violent home burglaries in Sacramento's Natomas neighborhood. In each of the robberies, Wright threatened his victims at gunpoint and demanded money. He also assaulted and kidnapped a woman and forced her to drive to ATMs and withdraw cash. Authorities began to suspect Wright of committing the home invasions after he exchanged some rare foreign currency that was stolen during one of the burglaries. He was linked to the kidnapping through DNA evidence. While searching Wright's home, authorities found stolen property belonging to the victims. Wright was convicted of 19 charges, including armed robbery, kidnapping, burglary, false imprisonment, and more. He was sentenced to 234 years and 8 months in prison. 2. Joseph's son. Joseph's son wasn't exactly a celebrity. He was a bit actor who was best known for his small role in the 1997 movie Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. In 2008, he was arrested for felony vandalism after kicking his roommate's car. His DNA was taken as part of standard procedure, and it turned up as a match to evidence that was left behind at the scene of a brutal assault in California back in 1990. Son was hit with 17 felony charges in connection with the attack, which carried a sentence of up to 275 years if convicted on all counts. The counts were all dropped due to the state's statute of limitations, so prosecutors charged him with conspiracy to commit murder and torture, which have no statute of limitations. During the trial, the court heard about how Son and an accomplice, Santiago Lopez Gaitan, kidnapped a woman while she was walking her dog. They pistol-whipped her, threatened her life, and did other horrible things to her while carrying out the prolonged assault. After terrorizing the victim and putting her through sheer hell, the men dumped her on the roadside with no clothes on and a piece of clothing tied around her eyes. Gaitan took a plea deal and admitted to kidnapping and multiple assault-related crimes in exchange for a sentence of 17 years to life. Son also pleaded guilty to a laundry list of charges, including torture, and was sentenced to life. In October 2011, Joseph's son was accused of murdering his cellmate, Michael Thomas Graham. He was charged with murder, but pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and received a 27.5-year sentence. 1. Tim Norman. St. Louis-based restaurateur Tim Norman became a reality star in the series Welcome to Sweetie Pies, which documented the operations at his family's soul food restaurant. In 2016, around 5 years after the show's first season aired, Norman's nephew, 21-year-old Andre Montgomery, was shot dead while out in public. 4 years later, in 2020, federal authorities charged Norman with Montgomery's murder. Prosecutors accused him of fraudulently taking out a $450,000 life insurance policy on his nephew with the help of a crooked insurance agent named YL Wally Rebhi Yagnam. Norman allegedly arranged to have Montgomery lured to a specific location, where another accomplice, Travell Anthony Hill, fatally shot the young man. Hill pleaded guilty to murder and received a 32-year prison sentence. A woman named Tanisha Ellis admitted that Norman paid her $10,000 to track the victim's whereabouts and was sentenced to 3 years behind bars for her role in the crime. The insurance agent, Yagnam, received a 3-year sentence for helping Norman apply for the fraudulent policy and file a claim on it. Norman maintained his innocence despite the confessions of his co-conspirators. He was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. The court sentenced him to life in prison despite his mother's plea for leniency. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be a famous train wreck who can't seem to get their life together but has no major enemies, or a highly controversial personality who is either deeply loved or deeply hated by everyone who knows who you are? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.